Welcome back to some new r/malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. Thanks for all the likes and comments on the last video. And now let's start with the first story. It's called Only Seen. I work in contract security as a guard at a major utility company. On my days off, I pick up extra shifts covering bank branches that our company also contracts with. On this particular day, I was assigned to a branch of a major bank. When I arrived, the branch operations manager greeted me and immediately delivered a strict set of expectations, which set the tone for a potentially difficult day. About 30 minutes into the shift, a customer arrived, looking unsure of where to go. She mentioned she had an appointment, so I greeted her and suggested she take a seat. Shortly after, the manager came out and reprimanded me, explaining that I was not to direct any customers, as this could potentially lead to complications. I accepted the instruction. An hour later, another customer entered visibly frustrated. He had an issue with his account and was growing more upset when the manager attempted to assist, especially as she placed the blame on him. While she left to find someone else to help, I briefly spoke with the customer, who was wearing a Marine Corps hat. We chatted about his military background and kept the conversation away from bank-related matters. When the manager returned, instead of addressing the customer, she signaled me with a gesture to stop talking. Afterward, she pulled me aside and reminded me that I was not to speak with customers under any circumstances. She said I was there for presence only and not to engage or de-escalate situations, despite that being a core part of a security officer's role. She made it clear I was to be seen, not heard, and threatened to contact my supervisor again if I had any issues with her expectations. Taking that instruction literally, I informed my supervisor and proceeded with full compliance. For the remainder of the day, I communicated only using basic sign language and gestures. I did not speak to customers, even when they asked general questions. I used signs and nods to direct them where needed, but remained silent. Around noon, the branch manager called me into his office, joined by the manager. They asked for an explanation about my interaction with the earlier customer. I explained what had occurred. Based on the manager's reaction, it was clear that my version differed from what he had been told. However, he reiterated the instruction. I was not to say anything to customers, even if it wasn't about banking matters. I acknowledged this, mentioned I had already informed my supervisor, and suggested that future concerns should go through him. At the end of my shift, my operations manager told me that the branch had requested I not return, due to how I responded to their instructions. He added, however, that I wouldn't be written up, as I had followed the client's directives exactly. The next story is called Stop Helping. I work in retail, and for a long time I made a habit of helping wherever I was needed. If a customer looked confused or had a question, I would assist, regardless of whether they were in my assigned department. One day, a supervisor pulled me aside and told me to stop doing that. The instruction was clear: stick to your area, let other staff handle their own section. I acknowledged the direction and adjusted my approach accordingly. The next day I was walking down an aisle when I noticed a customer just a few feet away struggling to lift a heavy item. She was in a neighboring department, not mine. We made eye contact. She asked if I could help her. I simply smiled and replied, "Sorry, I'm not assigned to that section." She left the item in her cart and walked out of the store. Later on, a manager approached me and asked why I hadn't assisted the customer. I responded, I was following the instructions I was given. The third story is called Bathroom Humor. I work in a toddler classroom, and this is typical for that age group. The children had started developing a fascination with bathroom-related humor. One day, they began talking about bodily functions at the lunch table. In response, our lead teacher reminded them that bathroom topics were only appropriate in the bathroom. To reinforce this, she began sending them into the bathroom if they brought up those topics during meals, encouraging them to get it out of their system before rejoining the group. They quickly recognized the unintended opportunity we had given them. They began heading into the bathroom voluntarily to say every bathroom-related word they could think of. At that point, we hoped the novelty would wear off. and chose not to walk back the rule. A few days later, during our scheduled circle time, several toddlers gathered in the small bathroom and began loudly chanting a bathroom-themed phrase in unison. Technically, they were following the rule. They were in the designated space for such talk, so we had no choice but to wait until their chanting session ended before we could begin the day's activity. The last story is called Creepy Dean. Around 2000 or 2001, I took a network administration course in Argentina. Our instructor, who also worked as a system administrator at our university, shared this story from his workplace. The university department he worked in primarily focused on philosophy and related subjects. The student body was about 95% female, with a mix of young high school graduates and older adults, many of them retirees, pursuing education as a personal interest. In Argentina, public university education can be tuition-free. In Argentina, national ID numbers are sequential, so a person's ID number can give a rough indication of their age. For example, someone with an ID starting in the 28 million range would have been born in a certain era. Foreign-born citizens, however, are issued IDs starting with much higher numbers, typically in the 80 million range, regardless of age. The department dean at the time, a man in his 50s, had a reputation for inappropriate behavior. Our instructor, let's call him the IT administrator, had access to staff internet activity and said the dean's browsing history raised concerns due to its inappropriate and clearly non-academic nature. The dean taught several mid-level courses each term. Students were distributed among available instructors, either manually or through a scheduling system. In this case, the administrator had created a program to randomize course enrollments, ensuring a diverse mix of students per class. One day, the dean asked the IT administrator to modify the assignment system so that his courses would include only female students with ID numbers starting at 35 million or higher, which would typically indicate students around age 21 or younger. He ended the request with a thinly veiled threat. Failure to comply might cost the IT administrator his job. Recognizing the disturbing implications of the request, but also the ambiguity in how it had been phrased, the IT administrator decided to follow the instruction literally. He reassigned all eligible female students with IDs starting at 35 million or higher. This included foreign-born women with IDs in the 80 million range, and senior citizens who were taking courses for personal enrichment. When the semester began, the dean was furious. His request had backfired, and he demanded consequences. The IT administrator simply reminded him that he had followed the instruction exactly, even though it had been highly questionable, and noted that the university board likely wouldn't look kindly on the dean's behavior if it came to light. A few months later, the dean was dismissed from his position. Though the official reason was never made public, there was speculation that his conduct had caught up with him. The IT administrator was never reprimanded, and the course assignment system remained in place. Thanks for watching the video to the end. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. Also, if you want to support me further, check out the channel membership or Patreon. And now, I hope you have a great day. See you soon. Bye bye.